I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, 3 people are killed and another injured in a devastating terrorist attack near Jerusalem. United States Peace Envoy Jason Greenblatt returns to try and restart peace negotiations. And I hope you're hungry because the I.A.A. just unearthed a delicious new discovery. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. Three Israelis have been killed and another seriously injured in a shocking terror attack near Jerusalem this morning. The incident took place near the I.A.A. settlement early this morning, and according to police, the terrorist opened fire on a group of Israeli security officers at the back entrance of the settlement as they were opening up the rear path to Palestinian workers.
הוא פותח באש מול הסובבים אותו, אלה שממש במגע איתו ובבדיקת תיעוד וחיפוש וכולי וכולי. התגובה המהירה של לוחמת ושל לוחם, אחד מאבטח מהג'יפ ואחד ליד הג'יפ, שפותחים עליו באש והורגים אותו, בעצם סוגרים את האירוע הזה, אחרת הוא יכול להיכנס לתוך היישוב ולהמשיך בדרכו או במה שהוא התכוון לעשות במשימתו הרצחנית.
The assailant has now been identified as a 37-year-old from the nearby Palestinian village of Beit Surik. He aroused the suspicion of officers on the scene when he approached the settlement at 7 a.m., but managed to kill 3 people with a pistol before he was gunned down in response.
הבוקר התקבלה קריאה על פיגוע ירי בשער של I.A.A. שנמצא פה מאחורינו. הגיעו למקום מספר מתנדבים מצוות אבו גוש, מצוות I.A.A. התחילו לטפל בנפגעים, לצערנו נקבע מותם של 3 נפגעים, אחד מהם פונה במצב קשה לבית החולים עין כרם.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called on Palestinian Authority President Abbas to condemn the attack and said the attack comes as a result of, quote, systemic incitement by the Palestinian Authority and other elements, end quote. The Israeli leader also promised that the terrorist's home would be destroyed. Police say the terrorist was holding a work permit that allows him to work inside Israeli settlements. This makes him one of the few Palestinians to commit a terror attack recently while in possession of such a document. The 3 murdered victims are all in their 20s, 2 local security guards and 1 border police officer. Medics claim the 4th victim, who sustained serious injuries, is about 32 years old and was taken to a Jerusalem hospital with a gunshot wound to the stomach. He was reportedly fully conscious when he went into surgery at the facility. The Hamas terrorist organization has already praised the attack, claiming it proves that Jerusalem is at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The settlement of I.A.A. is located just inside the West Bank and slightly off the main highway leading into Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Here to discuss today's deadly terrorist attack is Dr. Martin Sherman, who has 7 years of operational experience in Israel's intelligence community and is the founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies. Dr. Sherman, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so my first question for you is, Trump's peace envoy, Jason Greenblatt, is currently in the region. How do you think the United States will respond following today's terror attack?
Well, let me answer that obliquely. By coincidence, I happened to be in I.A.A. this weekend and was engaged in a rather fierce argument with people there over the Palestinian policy. I.A.A. itself is a community which, although is across the Green Line, voted massively for left-of-center parties, and this shows that it doesn't really matter what your attitude towards the Palestinians are, you'll be a target. The Palestinians don't really care what your political position is. I think that we've come down again to the swamp or mosquito syndrome. I'm not sure that what the Americans have to say should be Israel's greatest concern. I think it matters deeply, not so much what operational implications there are from this, because of course you can go on and say, well, we should increase the penetration of our intelligence collection and make it more intensive and more extensive and have more onerous border checks, which will only bring about, again, more international censure. But I think at some stage Israel has to conceptualize the conflict completely differently from the way it has done. It has to conceptualize as a clash between 2 collectives. And only one collective can emerge victorious. And that would be nice if it was our collective, because the alternative, I think, is very ominous. And therefore, we have to stop prioritizing the welfare of the enemy collective over the lives of our own collective. Now, you know, if you visualize the Palestinians as prospective peace partners, that's one scenario. If you visualize them as implacable enemies, that's a completely different scenario. If you visualize them in the first way, then there may be some logic in having concern for their welfare, their socioeconomic condition. But if you conceptualize them in the second manner as an implacable enemy, that makes no sense. And therefore, why would you want to employ them?
But then what would you do in the scenario where they are both a partner in peace and an implacable enemy? Because the truth of the matter is that when you have several million people, you don't have one or the other.
Well, as I say, that's why you can't individualize the conflict. It's a conflict between two collectives, and one collective has to overcome the other. That means defining a strategy for defeating the other collective. Now, you can't defeat them if you're going to employ them, if you're going to worry about their welfare. And you know, I've said this many times before. To relate to the Palestinians as an enemy means that you have to stop supporting their ability to fight against you. I think that I've said this many times before on your program, is that you need to stop supplying them with the means to sustain their conflict and gradually phase down the supply of water, electricity, and eventually reduce their presence there. Because look, you know, if you take the example that we had today with Nimr Jamal, it's very similar in many aspects to the example of a woman called Wafa al-Bas. Nimr Jamal was employed by a woman inside I.A.A. who had a very good relationship with him, and yet he had no compunction about coming into or trying to get into the community and killing everybody who came across him. The same thing was with Wafa al-Bas, who was a woman from Gaza, was badly injured, was treated at the Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, and then one day tried to come in with a suicide bomb and blow up all the doctors who treated her. So it makes very difference whether you treat them with cruelty or kindness. As an implacable enemy, what they want to do is kill you.
So, okay, you mentioned this as well.
By the way, you asked about Jason Greenblatt. I think this is the message that must be conveyed to him. I doubt very well that it will be, but I think it should be.
So, okay, you mentioned now that two different people who had permits to come into Israel. First, the terrorist from this morning, and then Wafa, who came with, I believe it was an underwear bomb or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Israel will be approaching work permits very differently now? Will they rescind them, restrict them, you know, stop issuing new ones? Perhaps? I don't know.
Well, again, unless they change the way that they conceptualize the conflict, the leadership conceptualize the conflict, they won't. Because if you continue to see the Palestinians down the road somehow as a prospective peace partner, you won't do that. If you see them as they see themselves, and we should see them as implacable enemies, of course we should do that. But then, then the question is, once you stop issuing work permits, what do you do with the population? You can't leave them unemployed. And I've suggested many times, and we spoke about it, I think, some weeks ago, about incentivized immigration by allowing them to find a better, more secure life elsewhere. And that comes down to what we talked about before. Are you going to drain the swamps or try to swat the mosquitoes?
All right, well, on that note, I think that's unfortunately all the time we have. Dr. Sherman, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the United States peace envoy Jason Greenblatt is back in Israel, and after today's deadly terrorist attack, he couldn't have come at a worse time. Trump's chief Middle East peace negotiator, Jason Greenblatt, has returned to the Middle East to continue to try to restart peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Greenblatt is expected to have follow-up meetings with both Palestinians and Israelis, and is then expected to go on a private trip with his family during the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. After today's bloody terrorist attack, though, several coalition ministers in Netanyahu's government have publicly declared that Israel should call off any attempts to begin peace negotiations with the Palestinian Authority. A White House official said, quote, While President Trump had productive meetings with Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Abbas at the United Nations, we also said that the UN would not focus on peace conversations and that those conversations would be happening on a separate track." End quote. Greenblatt has visited the region several times with the aim of renewing peace talks, but so far, those efforts have not come to fruition. So it looks like Hamas and Fatah are continuing to show that they are serious about reconciliation, as the Palestinian Authority has announced a major move to unify the two opposing factions. Palestinian Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah will arrive in the Gaza Strip next week in a rare and unifying visit. Hamas seized control of the coastal enclave in 2007, but in a short but brutal civil war against Fatah, and has been running the territory of roughly 2 million people ever since. A Palestinian Authority spokesperson said after consulting with PA President Mahmoud Abbas, the government led by Prime Minister Rami Hamdallah will hold their weekly meeting in Gaza next week instead of Ramallah.
بناء على قرار دولة رئيس الوزراء دولة الدكتور رامي الحمد الله بعد التشاور مع فخامة السيد الرئيس محمود عباس، قررت الحكومة الفلسطينية أن تعقد جلستها يوم الثلاثاء المقبل في قطاع غزة، حيث ستذهب إلى قطاع غزة لتتسلم كافة المؤسسات الحكومية هناك من أجل أن تقدم كافة خدماتها إلى أهلنا وشعبنا في قطاع غزة.
This will mark the first time in 2 years since the PA has held their weekly meetings in Gaza and signals that the two factions are serious about reconciliation. The announcement comes only a week after Hamas announced that they are ready to relinquish their control of the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority. And Hamas's decision to hand over control to the Palestinian Authority is largely based on the fact that the terrorist movement is isolated internationally and that the people of Gaza are facing a mounting humanitarian crisis. Hamdallah and several other senior PA officials are expected to arrive in Gaza on Monday to begin, quote, assuming responsibility, end quote, for the coastal enclave. That said, it still remains unclear if Hamas will agree to give up their power, since in the past they've refused to forego authority over their security affairs. Now, after failing to be admitted to Interpol in 2016, the Palestinians are again attempting to join, but it looks like Israel has other plans. The Jewish state is actively trying to thwart the Palestinians' latest request. For those not familiar with the organization, Interpol is the world's largest police organization with 190 member countries. Its main role is to assist law enforcement agencies around the world in combating all forms of transnational crime and terrorism. Israeli security officials are worried that if the Palestinians were to be accepted into Interpol, Palestinian terror groups would be able to receive sensitive information that could compromise Israel's security. In general, Israel's policy is to oppose the Palestinians attempting to join international organizations. The Jewish state argues that the Palestinians need to conduct peace talks with Israel and should only be allowed to join these organizations once they are recognized as an official state. Interpol's General Assembly is set to convene in China tomorrow, and one of the main subjects of interest will be to vote for new members. In order to be accepted, the Palestinians would need at least 2/3 of the member states to vote for them. The latest Palestinian bid comes after a failed attempt in 2015 and 2016. Israel's foreign ministry has asked several diplomats to put pressure on member states so that they don't let the Palestinians in this time around either. After originally publicly declaring support for the Kurdish referendum, Netanyahu now looks to have taken a step back. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has instructed his ministers to keep quiet on last night's historic Kurdish referendum. And although votes are still being counted, all indications suggest that the yeses will win overwhelmingly, which will help lead the path to Kurdistan becoming an autonomous state in northern Iraq. Israeli experts have hinted Netanyahu's orders come after the United States and Turkey have put pressure on Netanyahu to keep quiet on the results due to their objection of the referendum. One government official who wishes to remain anonymous explained to Reuters that the subject is too sensitive to comment on right now. As a reminder, earlier this month, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu raised eyebrows when he announced that Israel will not only be supporting the referendum itself, but will also support the Kurdish people to achieve their own state. Netanyahu's comments resulted in Kurds emphatically waving Israeli flags during pro-Kurdish referendum rallies throughout Europe and even in the Kurdish region of northern Iraq. But not everyone is staying silent. Opposition member of the Knesset and former finance minister Yair Lapid tweeted, quote, "The Jewish people know what it is to struggle for a homeland. The Kurds have a moral right to a state of their own. I wish them luck today," end quote. In a shocking twist, this weekend's Iranian ballistic missile test appears to have been fake news. United States security officials have revealed to Fox News Channel that this weekend's ballistic missile test did not take place at all. Yes, you heard that correctly. The officials claim the missile test video released by the Iranians is more than 7 months old and was simply recycled footage. The original verified footage was released by Iranian state TV in January and showed the launch of the Khorramshahr missile at the time. Officials said the missile flew for approximately 600 miles before exploding, resulting in a failed attempt. Shortly after the supposed missile test this weekend, United States President Trump lambasted Iran and tweeted, quote, "Iran just test-fired a ballistic missile capable of reaching Israel. They're also working with North Korea. Not much of an agreement we have," end quote. On Sunday, Iran continued its dangerous rhetoric by publicly displaying its Russian-made S-300 air defense system in the heart of Tehran, further heightening tensions between Iran and the West. As a reminder, on October 15th, President Trump is expected to tell the United States Congress whether he believes Iran is honoring the rules of the 2015 JCPOA nuclear agreement or not. If President Trump decides Iran is not abiding by the rules, the United States could renew sanctions or even cancel the agreement altogether. Trump claims he's actually already made his decision, but today's news could possibly change his mind. I guess now we just have to wait and see. Well, although international media is focusing on German far-right party AfD running 13% of the vote, Israeli officials are happy with Angela Merkel's re-election as chancellor. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised Angela Merkel's victory in Sunday night's German election, but decided to remain mum on the rise of anti-immigration party AfD.
יש לנו ידידים רבים, ידידה נוספת, אנגלה מרקל עכשיו זכתה בבחירות לראשות ממשלת גרמניה. זה טוב שמישהו זוכה בפעם הרביעית. זה סימן לחמישי.
World Jewish Congress President Ronald S. Lauder also hailed Merkel's victory, saying she has always had, quote, sincere and unyielding commitment to combating anti-Semitism and defending the State of Israel, end quote. On the other hand, Lauder had no problem calling out the AfD's entry into the German parliament, saying it's, quote, abhorrent that the AfD party, a disgraceful reactionary movement which recalls the worst of Germany's past and should be outlawed, now has the ability within the German parliament to promote its vile platform, end quote. The Jewish German community is also unhappy with the results and fears what it could mean for them. But a top official from the AfD has insisted that the Jewish community has nothing to fear, saying, quote, there's nothing in our party, in our program, that could disturb the Jewish people who live here in Germany, end quote. The State of Israel and Germany have maintained warm ties since Angela Merkel rose to power in 2005. Like all friendships, Israel and Germany have quarreled over specific issues, but Germany has always been seen as one of Israel's closest allies in the world. With Merkel still in power, hopefully that won't be changing anytime soon. Now, it seems that disabled protesters aren't the only ones blocking the highways of Tel Aviv this week, as the elderly parents and families of allegedly kidnapped Yemenite children took to the streets on Monday. The several hundred marchers, which included several Knesset members, were demanding official government recognition of the kidnappings that occurred nearly 70 years ago, while chanting recognition, healing, justice. Since the 1950s, over 1,000 primarily Yemenite families have made allegations against the Israeli government for having kidnapped their children from Israeli hospitals and putting them up for adoption. The Israeli government has already declassified 400,000 documents related to this case, but the fight seems far from over. The government has issued 3 different state commissions to try to put the issue to rest, most often coming to the conclusion that the children had died. But parents and families aren't buying it for a minute. Since bodies weren't returned, burial places weren't disclosed, death certificates were filled with mistakes, military draft notices were filed 18 years after children had supposedly died, and DNA testing has proven that at least some families' allegations were true. It seems the next move is indeed in the hands of the government to prove that it's done everything in its power to disclose what really happened to all those children all those years ago. Now, here's perhaps one of the weirdest historical findings to ever have been made in Israel. Archaeologists have found the remains of several decapitated toads in a jar in a 4,000-year-old tomb, and no, I'm not kidding. It looks like the finding gives us some major insights into the burial customs in the Canaanite period, which is commonly known as the Middle Bronze Age. The burial kit was found in Jerusalem near the biblical zoo, and the 9 toads within are apparently meant to be an afterlife snack. Food offerings and burials were typical during the Bronze Age, but the Israel Antiquities Authority says that finding toads is pretty unusual. Apparently, the only other place in Israel where a toad has been found was in Wadi Ara, and it dates back to the late Bronze Age. Generally, excavators find entire vessels filled with food, which were apparently placed to help the deceased make it on their way to the afterlife. Toads aren't the first creatures to be discovered in the Middle Bronze Age burials either. Archaeologists have also found the remains of sheep, goats, oxen, and even gazelles. Toads, then, we can gather, were apparently part of the diet of local settlers. But why they were decapitated, you ask? Well, one possibility may be to more easily remove the animal's toxic skin. I think this next item almost everyone has thought of at least once, and almost everyone was too nervous to do. Skinny dipping in the ocean. I.A.A.TV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here to tell us all about the latest project run by Israeli swimming champ Guy Barnea.
Yes, well, think about how many hours of his life Guy Barnea spent in the water. It was almost expected for him to get involved with something that had to do with swimming, right? So everything started with a nude photo shoot from his new men's swimsuit line, Weekends Art, and from there came the genius idea, skinny dipping in the ocean.
All right, well, before we go any further, let's take a sneak peek at what you're getting at.
Any idea why these people are so happy? That's because they discovered the wonders of skinny dipping. Hell yeah! And here are some beautiful swimsuits hanging on a rack in the middle of the ocean. Wait, what? See, here's the thing. Humans are kind of messed up, you know? They want to look amazing on the beach, show off their swimsuits. But they want to be one with nature too. They want to skinny dip. That's where this lady and our brilliant idea come in. Once you step into the water, we'll take care of your swimsuit, so nobody will see your precious pearls, except this funky turtle. And we might even let you have it back when you step out of the water, so you can look spectacular again. Weekends Out, the only swimwear brand that wants you to take your swimsuit off.
Okay, so he did the naked photo shoot, still not getting why it was nude if it was for the swimsuits, but continue. I'm interested to see where this is going and how it turned into what we just saw.
Okay, well, after the photo shoot and probably a very interesting experience, Guy and his two fellow designers decided it wasn't fair that they got to swim naked in the ocean and not everyone could. So this is how it works. You pay a small fee, you jump into the designated area of stunning ocean water and discreetly shed off your swimsuit mid-wave and hand it to the lady at the stand who actually hangs your bathing suit on a floating rack, and then you swim freely.
Wow. All right, so this sounds insane. I mean, I love how open people are to this. I feel like it's more than just being rebellious and swimming naked in the middle of the day.
Yes.
It's probably such a freeing experience, actually. I mean,
yeah.
Where you kind of get closer with nature in a way.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was their whole point. I mean, obviously, other than swimming naked, a Guy sees also the serious side of this project, a social movement in a way where people feel encouraged to bond with nature. He says he doesn't care about the money aspect of this project, but simply to give people the option to feel, as he says, the most liberating and natural experience. All
right, so for our viewers that want to test this out, or me, where can we go for more info?
You can go check them out on weekendsatt.com or check out their Weekends At Facebook page to get more information about where you can skinny dip and also their new swimsuit line.
All right, sounds great. Emmanuel Kadosh, thank you so much for joining us. Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine. And now for our Hebrew word of the day, something everyone can relate to is taking a nice long break on the beaches of the Mediterranean and letting go of all your weekly stresses, but you can't do that without today's word, which is beged yam, meaning a swimsuit in Hebrew. While walking around Tel Aviv in the summer, you cannot go more than a minute without seeing someone wearing a beged yam or swimsuit. Tel Avivians are always in the mood to go to the beach day or night, and in fact, most Saturdays I wake up, have a nice breakfast, put on my beged yam, and head straight to the beach. Is there anything better than that? No, really, is there? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a low of 73 or 23 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow you can expect little to no change in temperatures with a high of 83 or 28 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.53 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.